This episode is dedicated to the memory of Siobhan Galachon. She died a few days ago, quite a while after we'd recorded this episode, and the following one that you'll hear in January. So Michael and I will do a proper tribute to her for our February episode. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news if you hadn't heard. We miss you, Siobhan. Anyway, here is our surprise Christmas special. I'll hand over to Michael.
Welcome to For Your Consideration Christmas Special. Yes, the proper one that we're going to be discussing, which is my wife's choice. That one's coming out either next week or the week after, depending on when we get that out. But what we're doing for you today is saying Merry Christmas, and we're spending Christmas with you. You're probably going to be driving from one end of a country to another or something like that. So we thought we'd just have a bit of a chat with you about something that we both enjoy, that wasn't planned, that we just thought, hey, let's do this, and let's do a Christmas special. So this is our Christmas special. For your consideration, Muppets Christmas Carol. I think that's all right.
Yeah, I think that's great.
Let's do that.
Is it the Muppet Christmas Carol? I think it's one of those things where everybody refers to it as Muppet's Christmas Carol, but I think the official title is the Muppet Christmas Carol. But that's fine, because it's one of those ones where everybody refers to it in a particular way, and it doesn't really matter.
Right,
because
okay. 1992, The Muppet Christmas Carol.
Christmas
Not
Carol,
even
yeah.
Muppets.
Yeah.
The Muppet Christmas Carol. Right, we've got it.
So we've got the pedantry out of the way.
Hooray. Well, we haven't, because I'm sure there's plenty more pedantry where that came from.
You said that we both like this film, and that's very true.
Yes.
But you suggested it, so we
said, should we do something for Christmas? And we were like, yeah, we should. What should we do? And then we got here, yeah.
And I was thinking about this last night as I was watching it. So I was 8 when it came out, and you were
20.
So we probably have different experiences of first watching. So, Michael, what is your history with Muppet Christmas Carol, and why did you choose for us to talk about it today?
Right, okay. So I have a very distinct memory of seeing this in Newcastle at the cinema in Odeon 4. Now, there was 4 screens at the Odeon. There was the massive screen, Odeon 1, which you would see Terminator 2 and Highlander 2 and and some good films. And you would see that in Odeon 1. Odeon 2 and 3 were medium-sized screens, and they were directly underneath Odeon 1. And then Odeon 4 was to one side, and some people these days would say it was the same size as, watching something in your living room with a massive TV. It wasn't quite that small, but it was the smaller of all of them.
Right.
Okay, now across the road was the Tyneside Cinema, and that's your art house cinema. That had 2 screens. But Odeon 4 was the smallest of the 4, but when I saw it, I have no knowledge of who I went with. I have no other feelings. I know we sat at the front and to the right, because I have the very distinct visual memory of being there. I know I loved it. I know I was about 20, so there's a specific set of people I could have gone with, but I can't tell you if I did go with any of them at all. I just remember the movie, and it was brilliant. I loved it, because being a child of the 70s, I grew up with the Muppets on TV. Being a kid from the UK and also from Tyne Tees area, we didn't get Sesame Street. We got Sesame Street at the later than that. I was sort of in my 20s-ish, but that was sort of on Channel 4, so that doesn't really count. So we didn't get Sesame Street. We just had pure Muppets. My personal favourite of the Muppetness is Fraggle Rock. Absolutely love Fraggle Rock. That's my favourite of them. But me and my wife, we bonded over Muppets, and we're just a big fan. We've got like the complete set on DVD. I'll watch practically any Muppet-based project, and also I bloody love puppets. You give me a puppet, and you've lost me for like a whole day. I'll just make them come to life. One of my old my old teachers at drama college actually encouraged me to leave drama college, and just said, look, I've got some connections if you're interested, who are just professional puppeteers in Europe. Do you want me to make some contacts? And obviously, being a spineless idiot, I said no. But It is one of those alternative universe me's out there because I just love bringing them to life. I love doing the voices. I like the whole thing. And so that's where I am with the film. My love of Henson's brilliant, but this is time for a shit fact. Okay, so I'm doing my A-level art, and we've got the radio on, and 1 week it comes on the radio, on the news, that David Rappaport, the tiny guy out of Time Bandits, he'd killed himself. That's during A-level art first part of the exam. A-level art second part of the exam, the death of Jim Henson's announced.
Oh, God.
And I stand there in the middle of my art exam going, well, I'm just wasting my time here because I'll never get to work for him now. And I just stood there in my A-level art exam going, oh, an absolute waste of time all this is then.
What a moment to find that out.
Yeah, that's huge for me, that. So, and obviously...
Because most people can kind of say where they were when they heard that Kennedy had been shot.
Yeah.
Or for my generation, where they were when Princess Diana died.
Yeah.
But you know precisely where you were when Jim Henson died. Wow. That's...
When I found out, yeah.
Yeah, when you found out, yeah.
Yeah, so
Gosh,
those two deaths are like really etched into my head.
Yeah.
The memory might be cheating, but I really don't think it did. So anyway, my absolute love of Jim, and there's a documentary on Disney Plus, where it's Jim and it's Frank Oz as well. I just love Frank's work. He's a brilliant director, and he should have made more films. He really should have, because everything he made. It's got heart. It's just great. Anyway, so love the Muppets. This is the very first one made after Jim's death.
Yeah.
So it's the new Kermit voice, which is the closest, I think, to Jim's voice that we've had since he died.
Right.
And because the guy. But then there's the whole story anyway, that's a real life story. We're talking about Muppets Christmas Carol now. So that's my love of it. And then, of course, I bought it on VHS, like the date came out, because it was just brilliant. It's got Michael Caine in it. Oh my God, sorry, how good's Michael Caine? Right, yeah, sorry, there's a whole emotional wave of things. So yeah, loved the movie. I absolutely loved it. I preferred it to another film that was out around the same time that again was a VHS, and it became the Christmas staple, which is Scrooged. They're the two big sort of mid-80s, retellings of the Christmas Carol, and so yeah, there you go. That's it. I'm sure I'll talk more when we come to it. So, how did you come across this?
I'm pretty certain I watched it at school, so I definitely didn't go to see it in the cinema, because we didn't really go to the cinema as a family when I was a kid. The thing that really got me into going to the cinema regularly was the Star Wars special editions in '97. So that's that, because obviously I wanted to go and see those in the cinema. So I would have been about 13, and then that sort of kick-started me independently going to the cinema to watch stuff. So obviously this was before that, and I don't remember whether it was primary school or secondary school. Might have been early secondary school, might have been late primary school. You get to Christmas and the teacher bungs a VHS on.
Oh yeah, it's tradition.
And I had forgotten this until we were watching it last night. That it's the first film that made me cry.
Oh right.
And we will
specific
talk.
Bit. Oh yeah, I'm sure we'll get around to that.
No. I mean, I'll tell you what it is, but we'll talk more about me crying in films next time I pick one, because I'm picking it after Breakfast Club next time. I'm picking a film that made me cry, and we can talk about me and crying at films. No, it's the bit where the camera moves over the table and you see Tiny Tim's crutch.
Ah, yeah.
And I remember sitting there, in the midst of my fellow classmates. I kept it together enough that I wasn't wailing, but I was very, very overcome, and it was one of these things that I was like, I have to kind of bottle this up slightly because I'm in a class.
You were aware of the story, though. Were you aware of Christmas Carol?
So this is the thing. I think so. I didn't. Well, I'd never actually read it. I have heard Mitch Benn's audiobook version that he did 10, 15 years ago.
Oh, I've not.
He released it as a podcast, I think, and he really loves it. So that's my only experience of the Dickens text. But I think I'd seen the Alistair Sim version prior. I think that was one of those things.
What meme is this?
Yeah, so I think that version had come on telly. So I think I knew the story before watching this. But I guess this is the version that looms large in my memory, and it's the one that I've watched multiple times.
That makes sense.
And in terms of, I guess being the UFO cast, we should talk about the fact that the reason the Muppet Show got made was because Lou Grade had obviously financed all of the Jerry Anderson shows, and when nobody in the States would touch Jim Henson's idea, well, I think the pilot got made in the States, didn't it? But no network in the States was going to run with it, and Lou Grade was like, "You can come over to the UK and make it." So, but in terms of like because obviously, like you say, you had the Muppets. Your Muppet Show was on when you were a kid, and it had been and gone by the time I don't around.
know. I mean, are you? How Muppet au fait are you?
Well, so I was thinking about this, and I aside from this one, I haven't watched that much in terms of Muppet movies.
That's very interesting.
But equally, I feel that they were an ever-present thing.
Okay, so here's the fact that
I must have seen the odd bit of
today.
Sesame Street as well.
Yeah.
But if I think about puppets, it was really Sooty. That was what I grew up. That's what I grew up with, which obviously had been going for years and years and years. By the time I was watching it,
you're missing out a really obvious bit of puppetry that you're very into that you've not listed.
Well, I know I've just mentioned Thunderbirds and all that kind of
that makes
stuff.
sense.
Because yes, as I say, Lou Grade kind of funded that. But it to me, it's a very different thing. Super Mario Nation was trying to create a world in a particular way, and the Muppets are very kind of deliberately, here's some Muppets, here's some humans. This is, it's a very weird world that, depending on how you treat it, depends on how well it works. And obviously Michael Caine famously is like, I'm going to treat this as if they're not Muppets. I'm going to treat this as if I'm just acting opposite people, and that's why this works.
Do you know why he's in it though?
Because they cast him in it.
No. He only said yes because his friend had just made Roger Rabbit. Bob Hoskins apparently had loads of fun making Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Yeah.
And he went, Michael, you'll just have fun doing this. And if Bob hadn't have said that, Michael Caine would have gone like, no, it's just ridiculous. Because at the time, Michael Caine wasn't. He'd made, There was some falls and rises in his career, and he was always Michael Caine. He was always like beloved of the greatest of movie. I'm not an actor. I'm a movie star.
Yeah.
But he saw his career as kind of going, I'll just do that. Mm-hmm. But because he's chosen this role that means so much to us, and he's chosen other roles that are basically incredible, but he's not in it a lot. And I'm thinking like. Your Batmans and the Prestige and stuff like that, and I know they're both Nolan films, but it's like you just go, actually, you've stolen the entire movie now.
Yes. I mean, obviously, he's Nolan's muse, isn't he? I mean, he's in Interstellar as well, but I mean, I guess here's the other thing. Like, obviously, for me, this was my introduction to Michael Caine. I had no idea who he was.
That's a nice starting spot.
So watching it for the first time, this was just Scrooge for me.
Not Jaws 4.
And to be honest, the only other thing that he is to me, really, outside of this and the Nolan films, is Charlie Croker in The Italian Job. I'm aware of Get Carter. I've never seen Get Carter, and I'm aware of Alfie. I've never seen Alfie. I'm aware of his oeuvre. And why he was famous in the first place. But and again, I'm aware of the
the Ape Crest stuff's good. Oh, hang on.
Yeah.
The 1980s Ape Crest stuff. Sorry. Right. So, we could be making this podcast for decades.
Yes. But yeah, he doesn't put a foot wrong in this.
No.
Like he's absolutely perfect as Scrooge.
Right. For a start, he sings at one point. And he sings not great, but they didn't digitally balance him. They didn't mess with it. They just go, here's a song.
Well,
Michael, you're singing now.
So I said to my wife, as we were watching that, because obviously he sings slightly in the sad song in the middle, which was cut, which we'll talk about in a minute.
Ah, yes,
but the song he gets at the end, and I said this to Hannah, because my wife is much more musically talented than I am. I said, they've written a song for him which has a limited vocal range, haven't they? And she said, yes. They were like, our star is not a singer, so we're going to write something that works for his vocal range, and because of that, it's not like other actors who you might name who've tried to do musical stuff. It's
almost exactly the conversation went on in our house, because Andy can play piano, saxophone, shed loads of other stuff, and she just went, "That's a very interesting choice of key they've gone for there." So I was like, "Yeah, okay." It's Michael Caine. We just let him off. He did.
Yeah.
Oh my God! You won't have seen the acting masterclass. I bet they're on YouTube. Michael Caine's acting masterclass used to be on at lunchtimes on a Saturday, about the same time as the wrestling.
Okay.
Right? And I don't know why it was on. It was on BBC Two, and if you can track it down, see that. There's an episode where he talks about how to play drunk in Educating Rita or in other things that he's done.
Right.
And he's brilliant. Like, you don't need anybody else teaching you how to act if Michael Caine's masterclass is in your
I feel I've
quiver.
seen a clip of him teaching something.
It was
about
it was notoriously
movie making, yeah.
The mick was notoriously taken out of it
Right.
by a lot of other people. But yeah,
Right.
this thing's well worth tracking down. So Michael Caine, absolute international movie star, but he's a man of his time, and I don't know what else he was making around this time. I think he'd made Water for Handmade Films. I'm just going off the top of my head. That's a whole other. Yeah.
I might have to bring up his IMDb at this point, but
oh, come on! He's made 100 movies.
No, but in terms of what was going on at the same time,
he's 90 odd now, and apart from the fact that he's
he 91 now, I think. Because Hannah was kind of going, well, how old was he in this film? Because he's already old. I mean, he was like late 40s when this came out. But he has just kept working, hasn't he? He's like one of these people that's just never going to retire.
And he's opened restaurants, and he's done all sorts of stuff going on.
Blue Ice was the film that was immediately before this one, and then On Deadly Ground, both of which have ratings of like 4 or 5 on IMDb.
Out of 100?
This was out of 10.
Okay.
But this is clearly the film that stands out in the kind of early, yes. And Jaws: The Revenge gets a 3 to 5. But he's very pragmatic about that.
That's a very generous score.
I mean, he's very, he talks about that. He's like, I know. What is it that? What did it build?
I've a swimming pool. Yeah,
it was. Yeah,
it was a swimming pool. Yeah. I've never seen the movie, but I have seen the swimming pool that it paid for.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But he never took himself seriously. But he always did take himself seriously, and it's lovely to watch. He always said that the things that people remember him for are stuff like in the Ipcress file, he breaks 2 eggs at once or 3 eggs at once. And that's somebody else's hand, and there's something else he's known for, and that's not him either, and he's like but that's fine. And I was actually gutted when I discovered about the egg breaking thing, because I could do that as well, and I thought, oh, that makes me look cool, but no, that's fine. So yeah, it's a film that we always come back to. So here's the thing. We mentioned it earlier, but there was a missing song.
Yes.
Now, the song was cut out of the original theatrical release.
Yes.
And then it was reintroduced to the VHS release, creating a Mandela effect, because we didn't know it had a new song. All we knew was we'd been to the cinema and we'd seen a film that we enjoyed, and then we watched it on VHS and it was even better. And then we watched that one over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Now, apparently, according to Brian in an interview, they lost the original recording, the original film of it, there was a VHS transfer,
Yeah.
and then that particular bit got lost.
Yes.
And they'd found it just before it was rescanned for Disney Plus's release.
Yes.
And they didn't tell him. So if you're watching it on Disney Plus, you have to go into extras, and it says play film with extra song.
Yeah.
Why they're just doing so instead of theatrical release or
apparently
they should call it something else.
There are some DVDs with the full screen version that also have the missing song in. Apparently, I was reading.
Right, but once they'd done the transfer, they lost the original high def.
Yeah,
thing.
They didn't have a film quality copy of it until the Disney archivists found it 2 years ago. So.
But then they found it and they showed Brian, and apparently he cried as soon as they saw it. Which is
my recollection is that obviously when I first saw it on VHS, it would have been the version with the song in it, and then in terms of like subsequent UK broadcasts, I don't know which version was being used, but I certainly remember having seen it subsequently without the song in it, because certainly watching it last night, I was like, I know this. I mean, and Hannah had never seen the version with the song in it. And I was watching it going, yeah, I've definitely seen this before, but it's been a long time, which means that I suspect that subsequent versions that I saw were not the version with the song in. And it's obviously a stupid decision by the Disney exec, head of Disney at the time, who said, let's cut it out, because you lose the bookend, one of the two bookends, of that you've got the song here about Love Is Gone, and then at the end you've got the song about Love Is Here, and you're like, well, that song at the end doesn't make sense properly, thematically, narratively, without having had the first song.
It's like 2.5 minutes, and it's on the soundtrack album. So, and everyone had the CD, because I've got the CD soundtrack album. We play it. We actually play the CD at Christmas. It's one of those things that's just around. So yeah, and it's like all good musicals, the songs mean something for a specific moment of the narrative. They're not just, they're never padding. If they're padding, they're in the wrong place and they're in the wrong musical. They need to be there for a reason to tell some of the story. And they absolutely tell the story. Because we had a conversation in the car, because Andy said, what are you going to talk about? And she said the thing she's never understood is during the scene where, oh my God, that spider character who's buying all of the stuff that belongs to him. There's a TV version that's been quite recent, and it's one of the guys out of Vicar Dibley playing the same character, and he's so good that you're actually picturing him as a spider in this, because you just kind of morph them together. And so he's got mother of pearl cufflinks, and it's like, well, Scrooge loves money, but he hates spending money because Scrooge loves the dark, because dark is cheap, right? And but this is the version. This is the version that's got the most lines from Dickens than any other filmed version of the Christmas Carol, which I just love that, because oh my God, I need a Gonzo. I really need a Gonzo dressed as Dickens, right? So, so why has he got mother of pearl cufflinks? And all I could figure out is that they were a present from his girlfriend.
Yeah.
Because
that would
he
make
wouldn't
sense.
have spent them on that, and that was the only reason that he would have had that. And it's just clever little layers of characterization that are there. But sorry, this is more of a Gonzo-centric film than Muppets from Space, which is also completely Gonzo-centric. See, I have seen all of the Muppet movies.
But you've just reminded me, actually, that the actual Muppet thing that loomed most large in my mind before this was the Muppet Babies cartoon.
Ah, right, okay.
Because that was a Saturday morning cartoon thing, and the thing that I remember distinctly,
it certainly
was the episode where Gonzo was trying to figure out what he was.
Well, that's the entire plot of Muppets from Space. Giveaway. He might be from space.
Well, yeah, so he's trying to work out whether he's an anteater, so they get him to eat ants, and he doesn't like ants, so he's like, I'm not an anteater. But yes, so yeah, Muppet Babies. And I probably did see some Fraggle Rock, actually. You mentioned Fraggle Rock.
I was 11 when Fraggle Rock was out, because I remember now, I bought the album. I've got the Fraggle Rock LP on vinyl. I still have it. And I have bought it on CD since, because it's got even extra songs. But that's because I watched the British version, and Series 1 had Fulton Mackay, and Series 2 had the bloke from Brookside in it. Because Fulton Mackay died. How dare he? But there you go. Oh no, it's not a Fulton Mackay Doctor Who thing. But we're talking Muppets Christmas Carol. We're not talking about this. But on the subject of which, I am convinced. I am absolutely convinced, and I've looked it up on the internet like a demon, and I suspect I've completely dreamt this, that somebody involved in Doctor Who, like Terence Dicks or Barry Letts, was in the background as a producer or something on Fraggle Rock, and I have managed to find zero evidence of this. Right? I've done a massive deep dive on the internet, but I'm convinced that there was someone who had a conversation, possibly at Hooverville, on stage, and they were talking about Fraggle Rock, and I was deeply impressed. And everyone else was like, oh, yeah, we didn't know this. And I can't remember who it was, and I've done the research, and it's like, who was the producer on this? And I'm even convinced it was Jerry Davis, who was dead. But he couldn't have done it. But I'm like, no, seriously, it's in there. And I just can't get it out. And the internet has totally let me down, because every time you look up who's the producer of Fraggle Rock, it just keeps coming up as Jim Henson and some other bloke. And you're like, no, there's a Doctor Who connection in here. There is. But and Sprocket from Fraggle Rock is in this.
I'm not much of a one for Christmas movies, in general. But this is like the Christmas movie that I guess it's one that I must have watched with my family a few times, more so than kind of anything else. I remember the Santa Claus. Do you remember that one? That was the one with Dudley Moore as the elf.
Santa Claus the movie.
Santa Claus the movie. Claus. Sorry, yes, okay.
Because the Santa Claus is Tim Allen.
Okay.
That's Santa Claus with an E.
All right. Santa Claus the movie, I guess, was yes. And then Home Alone, I suppose.
Because that's got John Lithgow, and Mrs. Claus is played by Hyacinth Bouquet's sister.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yes. But yes, Home Alone as well. I guess we watched now and again.
You see, we never did Home Alone.
There just aren't many Christmas movies that loom large in my mind. But this one definitely was kind of
okay. Did you do It's a Wonderful Life? Because that was big in our house at Christmas.
I have seen It's a Wonderful Life once.
Interesting.
And you're probably gonna.
Were you made to watch it at university?
No, I watched it in my Love Film days. So when I had Love Film and was regularly watching movies through the post, and the version that it was just one of those films I was like, I've never seen this, I should put it on the list. And the version that I got sent was the colorized version. So I've seen it in colour.
Hey, that's not your fault.
No, it's not my fault.
That's all right. It's not your fault.
But it left me cold. In terms of like classic films that one should have seen and is supposed to like, it was not for me.
I've seen 5 minutes of the colorized version, and it was right at the beginning of the colorizing process. It's not a great job, and it leaves a lot to be desired. But because the black and white one, a really decent print, and the one the BBC show at Christmas is a very good print, and that it is great. I think I share a lot. I watched it with my dad. He said it's very slow. Watch it, you'll really enjoy it. And I had that nice warning of it is slow. Bear with me. So it is, and that made sense. And I loved it.
It's a long time since I've seen it, and so I don't remember what it was about it that didn't mesh. I'm not sure that the fact that I was watching a colorized DVD was a big factor.
No.
You know, although I have thoughts about upcoming Doctor Who colorizations that are not charitable.
And they're not surprising, though, really, are they?
Though, I suppose this is going on Christmas Day, so everybody who's listening to this will have had a chance to watch the War Games in colour. in its 90-minute cut down version. The only thing about that I'm excited about is the
butchered version. Is that where you're going?
yeah. Well, yeah. The only thing about it that I'm excited about is the bit of HD footage that they've recovered from the editor bloke that RFS interviewed. That's the only thing about it that I'm excited about is seeing a bit of it in HD. But you said there's a Muppet version of It's a Wonderful Life, right?
Oh, right. Okay, so everyone in the world absolutely loves, hey, Muppet's Christmas Carol. It's one of the best Muppet movies. It's also one of the best Christmas movies. And yeah, you're right. However, there is a Muppet Christmas film that I prefer to this. And it's called A Very Muppety Christmas. Right? Now, it's not on Disney Plus. Disney Plus own the rights. They've got all of the Muppet stuff, the obscure 70s films that is like you want to see Basil Fawlty meet the Muppets, they're there, right? It's all there. Okay,
I've seen that clip. I've not seen the rest of the film, but I've seen that clip.
The one thing they don't show is this, because I think it was paid for by a different company, HBO or somebody. I don't know who it was, but but Channel 5 always show it every Christmas. And I came across it about 5 years ago, and it was like, Christmas now, hang on, there's a Muppet film I've not seen. How's that? And it was made for TV, but I have managed to track it down on Blu-ray in high def.
Wow, okay.
And it's the Muppets do It's a Wonderful Life. That's it. Kermit wishes that he hadn't been born, and you see the universe without Kermit. The rest of the Muppets are all alive, and they've all gone their own ways, and it's like the alternative universe Muppet thing. But instead of Old Man Potter that you've got in that, you've got Joan Cusack, who I will always love, playing evil business tycoon person. And this predates the new Muppet movie. The one with, the guy singing, "Am I a Muppet or a Man?" all that business. It predates that one, but I think it's immediately before. So it's on the end of, it's basically the last of the hurrahs of the Muppets. Because without that other movie, the rest of the Muppet resurgence may not have happened, arguably.
Okay.
But it's just great because it's set in, it's like the old TV series. There's the Muppet Theatre. It's going to close. They're going to lose all their money. They have to put a special show on to bring it back. It's got similarities with the new Muppet movie as well for that reason.
Right.
But you've got the same storyline from It's a Wonderful Life where Fozzie has to get the money to the bank, and he loses it just like his uncle does. Kermit wishes his life was different. Whoopi Goldberg plays God, right? And there's a not a very good angel who's I think is it one of the Arquettes. Anyway, he turns up and he has to convince Kermit that the world is a better place with him. And Miss Piggy's a mad old cat lady. There's a lot of other stuff going on. The universe without Kermit is a word, but like Hoppers from one of the other movies has actually become a chain of food that sells frogs' legs and things like that. There's a lot of callbacks, but it is a truly great retelling of It's a Wonderful Life.
Right.
And you're like, whoa! I mean, I'm the person who sat through Muppet Wizard of Oz. So yeah, that's fine.
Sorry, let's rewind that. There's a Muppet Wizard of Oz.
Oh yeah. Oh yes, there is, and Miss Piggy's playing multiple witches. It's very good because in the original novel they're not ruby slippers, they're silver, and Miss Piggy actually leans to the camera and goes, "Yeah, silver slippers. Read the book," because it's great. Because obviously they made the book because the book's out of copyright.
Yeah.
So you can remake The Wizard of Oz as much as you want for that reason.
Right.
Which brings us back to last time's chat about, making things. So yeah, there's a lot of Muppet stuff out there that you might not be familiar with, but that's my all-time favourite Muppet Christmas film. And I'm always disappointed if it's not on, which is why I bought it on Blu-ray, because I just really like it. There's one of the Muppet actual shows is them doing Moulin Rouge.
Mm-hmm.
So Miss Piggy doing bits of Moulin Rouge the movie with all the penguins and everything. It's better than Ewan McGregor ever could have dreamed it could have been. It's better than actually watching Moulin Rouge by far. So So that's worth seeing anyway. That's my favourite, which is Muppety Christmas. But this one is great. I'm just looking at my notes now. One of the things worthy of mentioning was Waldorf and Statler being... There's two things worthy of mention on this one, is that it's Robert and... It's Jacob and Robert Marley. Nobody ever comments that it's Jacob Marley and Bob Marley.
Bob Marley, yeah.
Is Bob Marley.
Yeah.
And like nobody ever goes, they go, yeah, it's Bob Marley. And you're like, what? It's Bob Marley. But nobody ever calls him that. It's Robert Marley.
Yes.
So that's good. And then you see them young, and my wife turned to me and she went, you see them there? They're the Gallaghers. When you see them in Fizzy-Wig's factory, rubber chicken factory, and they're on the shelf, and they're high up just shouting abuse down. It's 100% like the time where Liam Gallagher wouldn't perform on TGI Friday and then TFI Friday, and he just went into the gallery and started heckling abuse from above. And they look like the Gallagher brothers because they're all young and they've got the right faces and everything. And it was just such a nice moment, but that's not important.
I mean, it's a coincidence, obviously, because Oasis weren't quite there
absolutely.
in '92.
No, 100% it's a coincidence, but it still works.
Going back to the whole, we didn't really do Christmas films in my family.
Oh, okay.
There is a point to this. It's probably because my parents were quite keen on, like, Christmas being about Jesus. Which is not to say we didn't kind of do Christmassy, more secular Christmassy things.
Yeah.
But I was struck by the moment where they come home from the church service. Well, Kermit has been to the church service with Tiny Tim, and there's that tiny moment where he's talking to Miss Piggy, and he talks about Tiny Tim, talking about being there at the church service to remind people of the one who healed the lame and the sick, and I was like, it's just, and I don't know whether that's originally, because I haven't, as I've only heard the novel once. I don't know whether that's from the original Dickens text or not. Just that kind of tiny, and obviously Jesus isn't even name checked, but it's just a kind of reference to, church and it's just a really sweet. I mean, he's just a very sweet character, isn't he, Tiny Tim? Which is why you're absolutely devastated when he dies in the potential future. Which, that's the other thing to talk about. Is A Christmas Carol a time travel story?
Well, yeah. For a couple of things. Yes, it is a time travel story, because before H.G. Wells, there were other time travel stories, but they were all done using some sort of spirit or magic thing. It's why the Time Machine is the first one to use an actual machine to travel through time.
Yes.
Right. But there's not a huge... Time-wise, it's still the Victorian era, and I know the Victorian era lasted bloody ages.
Yeah.
But you've got that. So my money's yes, it's a time travel story in the sense that, A, you can change the future. So you've got that going on. And you've also got, you can visit the past, but you can't change it.
Yeah.
Arguably, because I know they're just shadows, but that makes sense. So,
and he's not able to interact with.
Not with the past, no.
So it's more like the time-space visualizer, but actually being there rather than watching it on a TV screen, isn't it? You're able to kind of view the past, but for him, it's kind of very real. And I love the bit at the end where he's with the ghost of Christmas Future who never speaks, just points, and he's like, is this is this the future, or can I change it? I forget what the line is, but he's, because obviously at that point he's desperate to kind of know, like, can I make a difference? Like, am I doomed to be this person? And the whole. You do know the story of Alfred Nobel?
Yes. Yeah. Well, hang on. Well, I know a story. It was in the news that he died.
Yes.
He read his own obituary and he went, "It's just about me and dynamite. What's all this about?"
Yeah.
I've done so much more than that. And they went, have you though? And he was like, I suppose. So then he created the Nobel Peace Prize.
Yeah.
But
That idea of like, most of us don't get to. It goes both ways, isn't it? People talk about like, tell people like how amazing they are before they go. Like, don't leave it to the funeral. But equally, like in this case, it's a kind of he finds out what people really think of him when he's not in the room. From his nephew and that to all the people who are kind of delighted that he's dead. And it makes you wonder, what would people say about me or what do people say about me in my absence if they do say anything, or what would people say about me after my decease, as it were. It's a slightly sobering thought.
Yes.
I don't know.
Well, I would go for extremely sobering. But yes, it is.
Which is, like existential questions in a Muppet film. I suppose it's,
Oh, well, they're right. Okay, so politics across the world's been a bit shit over these last few years. I'm sure we could all agree on that one. And one of the things that annoys me is when people go, hey, this person, they're an absolute Muppet. And that annoys me because Muppets have got heart, they've got a moral code, they will defend each other, they will protect each other, and they will have fun, right? None of those things are what politicians are about. They're just either thick or selfish, and that is not a Muppet. I hate it when people use that person's a Muppet as a derogatory phrase, because Muppets are not that. Because Jim, and I'm filling up just thinking about this, but Jim had heart, and they all came out in the puppets.
Yes,
and it meant something to us. It meant something to an entire generation, and it always pushes my buttons when they're like, "Oh yeah, he's a right Muppet." No, if he was a Muppet, he'd be nice, and we wouldn't be having these conversations. Yes. So sorry, that's a personal rant there.
Well, I agree with that, and I suppose the interesting thing, and I don't know the answer to this question, is like, what is the etymology of Muppet? I guess it's like puppet, isn't it? But I don't know why.
Yeah.
Why Muppet?
Well, I don't know if you've seen much of The Simpsons, but there is one bit where Marge says it's half mop, half puppet.
Half mop, yeah.
That's it. But I think that's possibly true.
That could be it. But then how did that word, and I don't think, it would be interesting to know whether the word has the same connotation outside of the UK. It feels like a UK piece of slang, doesn't it? He's a right Muppet, I can't recall where I first heard it in that context, but it's been present for quite a long time in kind of UK slang, and whether it has any connection to somebody who didn't like
these Muppets, yeah.
Well, or somebody who didn't like the Muppets, because it's quite possible that some people don't like the Muppets. I don't have much time for people who don't like the Muppets, but
I agree.
And who wanted to, and it somehow caught on. I can see where you're coming from. I don't have a problem with it in that sense, because I think there's a very clear distinction between, I'm not. When you're saying it, you're not saying this person's like one of those characters, because as you say, those characters embody something completely different from the idea of somebody being. I guess it's a bit like Numpty, isn't it? Muppet sounds a bit like Numpty.
No, okay.
But I can see why it's annoying. That you're like, well, I this is my word. I don't want it to have any other connotations. But I never really connected the two in my head, that anybody's trying to kind of make a derogatory comparison about actual Muppets when they're calling somebody a Muppet.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Well, there's a specific MP who never spends any time in Clacton, who people often call a Muppet. And I'm always annoyed. It was like, no, you would never have got, like, a Hitler Muppet. Or, you know what I mean? You would never have got.
I feel that the word Muppet derogatorily has a sort of connotation of incompetence.
And
you could never accuse him of being incompetent. I think he's
manipulative.
He's just he knows what he's doing, and he's sadly quite good at it for his audience. Well, let's not give him any more time.
No more headroom. No, it's Christmas Day.
Costume, right? The other thing.
Okay.
My wife came across a thing from somebody who does costume. Apparently, the costumes are really accurate.
What, for Victorian
period? They're really period accurate for kind of but they're Muppet sized and everything. So it's another way in which they kind of production wise, it's a really good production.
Is it Rizzo or Gonzo who's wearing a Harry Potter scarf? One of them's actually wearing a house scarf. No, but Kermit's wearing red and green, so that's nice.
It's a Christmas tree.
Oh, right. Sorry. How good is that one shot where Kermit is walking? You can see his legs. He's walking with Tiny Tim on his shoulders. There's a tube on the ground, so the ground is moving underneath his feet. So they're rotating, so you can see them. You can see him walking along the road, and then there's not back projection; it's been green screened because they had to get rid of the puppeteers. But then they've got a slow pull out of the background, so the background's moving, the foreground's moving, and the puppets are all moving, and he's walking, all in one shot.
I have to say, I'd not thought about the technical complications of how it was done.
That's incredible. But we started watching it the other day, and I went, "Oh my god! I just love that opening shot. The model shot on over the roofs is incredible." And my wife and my daughter both turned to me and they both went in unison, "You say that every single time we watch this." But it is. Well, the opening shot is just beautiful. I used to be an architectural model maker. I know how hard those things are, and that is an absolute thing of beauty. It's just roofs. They're in forced perspective. There's so many camera tricks and reality tricks of the eye and some model making techniques going on there, and it's just gorgeous. And all it is roofs. They're going like, "Hey, yeah, we've spent months on this, and it'll be on the screen for like a minute and a half, and no one's going to pay any attention to it, but we know we worked hard on it."
Yes.
And it's like, "Oh, yeah, everyone's waiting for the puppets to turn up. That'll be fine."
Yeah.
And I'm like, nothing's moving. It just looks great.
But I guess there's that level of kind of, because you have to have that level of craft to, in terms of like perspective, to make the puppets work with the people. And just the fact you've got the bit where kind of Scrooge is kind of stalking through the town, in the background, and you've got.
You don't see him for like an entire song.
Yeah, and
there's an entire song about him, and you never see his face. It's brilliant.
But you've got all that kind of foreground choreography in the background, and you just go, how many takes did it take to get some of these? Because the timing has to be, and with any regular film, you've employed tens, hundreds, however many extras you need to fill out your crowd scenes. And you give them a bacon butty and sit them in a tent, and and then you call them on and they do their thing, and you pay them whatever you have to pay them. With this, every single extra, I'm air quoting there, is a puppet. You have to make all of your extras.
Everything's a choice. Yeah. They're all. Yeah, everything's got to have been drawn, designed, made, brought to life, and then they have to make it look like it's natural and it's happening there and then for the very first time.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's incredible.
It
but
is.
It works. It is.
Now, we can't talk about the Muppets without making the connection to Star Wars.
Yes.
When did you know? I mean, because you're older than me, so maybe you were more aware. I didn't know for years that Yoda and Miss Piggy were the same person. And then once you know, you're like, well, you can't not hear Yoda you can't not hear Yoda when Miss Piggy's on screen. You can't not hear Miss Piggy when Yoda's on screen. But when did you become aware of Frank Oz? Well, and any of the other performers really. But was that crossover there in your head?
No, it's there. It's been there for so long. I don't know when it started because I know I devoured any making of.
Right.
And Yoda was my all-time favourite Star Wars character. I mean, I was there for the robots to begin with, the R2 and the C-3PO. But I've got a shelf of droids and robots, and pride of place in the dead centre next to my 1980 odd Yoda, which is the Yoda hand puppet I had when I was 12, 11, whatever. So I've still got them because I just absolutely loved those characters. Came for the roads, but Yoda I just absolutely adored. And there was also a Star Wars special episode of the Muppets which had Luke and the droids in them as well, which I think's either series 2 or 3 of the Muppets TV series. But I remember at the time they'd shot it in NTSC, not on film, because most of the Muppets were shot on film, I think. And even as a kid, I was like watching it going, why does this look like an episode of like Dallas or something rather than an episode of the Muppets? I was aware that there was something different about the way it was shot, but I think they'd probably gone to America to film those insert bits. I don't know what the mechanics of it was, but I think I was always aware of there being some sort of weird similarity between Yoda and that. And then, but again, one of my all-time favorite movies is Frank Oz directed Little Shop of Horrors, which I just adore, and I watched it before and after every single GCSE exam in order to clear my head. The soundtrack album I would have on tape to like use as almost like a hypnotic suggestion thing to calm me down.
Wow.
So those songs, I can just go through, and the way it was shot and the way that the plant was recorded in double time and then slowed down and everything else. There's a lot of Frank's always out there trying to push the envelope of a practical effect, and so he was good. But from a directing point of view, this is Brian's movie, and there's so much love gone into it. And Jim had only been gone 2 years when this was made, and it was already in pre-production, and it's just gorgeous to watch, and it must have been so hard.
Yeah.
But it just worked. I wish Brian had made more, or had been able to make more, because there we are, Doctor Who fact that I found out today while researching. Tim Curry was offered the part of the Eighth Doctor.
Right.
But he had to turn it down because he was making Muppet's Treasure Island. Which was in
I had no idea that anybody was offered the role before.
I had no
Paul
idea
McGann.
about this. I don't know if it's true. And I suppose Tim Curry's on Twitter. I could ask him. But if that's true, that's incredible.
Talking of that, my wife found a quote the other day. Re Tim Curry. She found a quote the other day saying that in the Muppet Christmas Carol, Michael Caine treats the Muppets as though they're humans, and in the Muppet Treasure Island, Tim Curry acts like he's the Muppet.
Yeah, I can see that. And you know what? I've got no problem with either of those approaches. And you know I've got notes, but do you have anything else you feel that you need to add?
I mean, I feel we could probably talk. We've gone off on quite a few tangents, haven't we? Anyway, I feel that we could talk.
Really?
Around,
Us? Never.
Yeah. I feel that we could talk around this subject a lot further. But I think we've said. I guess just to say that it was really nice to just sit down and watch this with my wife yesterday.
Yeah.
Because again, a lot of the stuff that we do on this podcast we don't watch together. Because I tell her what it is, and so it was just nice to sit down and watch it again, because it's something we both enjoy. And it will. I mean, it's funny because my daughter. You saw my daughter come in before we before we started recording, and she was like, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I'm doing this thing about the Muppet Christmas Carol." She was like, "What's that?" And I told her, and I said, "We decided it was probably a bit too scary for you, because of all the ghosts and stuff." And she went, "Ooh." But I think it's the right call. I think if we tried to show it to her at this point, she probably wouldn't, because she doesn't cope well with lots of things. I think my other daughter at the age of 7 will probably be straight in. Their tolerance for kind of anything a bit freaky. And it's one of those things. She doesn't like. I think I said when we did Wallace and Gromit, she doesn't like Wallace and Gromit because of the look of Wallace. She doesn't like that look, and I'm like thinking, well, if you don't like the look of Wallace, you're not going to like the Muppets. You've got a similar kind of aesthetic with the bulgy eyes and everything. But this is because this is one of those films that I'm like, well, yes, at the right point, I want my kids to get into this because it's a lovely piece of cinema. It's very funny. The music's catchy. One More Sleep Till Christmas. Like there's bits of this film that.
Oh, that's a great one.
But there's bits of this film that are in my head that come out at Christmas.
Well, yeah. I mean, Tiny Tim, who did not die, is like you can have that. How many films have you watched, and you've thought, and that's just popped into your head when a character's turned up? It's admittedly usually like Sean Bean, in a film. Sean Bean, who oh no, he did die. There's one film. There is one movie where you think Sean Bean's been killed off, and then he turns up 10 minutes before the end. And I actually think I turned to someone and went, Sean Bean, who did not die.
Well,
because
obviously,
you were like,
obviously, Goldeneye is the prime example of that, in that you think he's dead at the beginning, and then he turns up. And then
spoilers.
I mean, I don't think we do spoilers. Ronin, right?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen Ronin?
What isn't that Hawkeye? And he's like we're thinking.
No, it's Robert De Niro.
Oh no,
Robert De Niro. And he basically gets this crew together to do this thing. You don't really. It's one of those things you don't really know what's going on until near the end. But basically, one of the people they get as part of the crew is Sean Bean, who is hopelessly out of his depth. And you're like, well, he's short. A, it's Sean Bean, and B, the character is stupidly inept. He's going to die, and then he doesn't, and they just pay him off. He's like, well, you failed, so we're going to pay you off. Don't, off you go. And he survives, and you're just like, wow, it's a Sean Bean film where he ought to get killed off, but doesn't. So anyway,
right. So yeah, there's a lot of lines in this that do just permeate you. They just get into your head and they hang around. And
yeah. Have you exhausted your notes, or are we on to spot the Doctor Who actor?
Yes, and I realised on my way to the shed tonight that we'd both missed the really obvious ones plural, which I'll come back with at the end, and you'll go, oh yeah, of course, that doesn't count, but because you found one.
Well, technically. It's the
technically
guy
correct, the best form of correct.
Yes. So the guy who plays the oldest of the young Scrooges.
Yeah.
So the sort of like the one who should be getting married to Belle.
Yeah.
He apparently has done a bunch of Big Finish audios because some bright spark has decided to put all of Big Finish on IMDb. So you're kind of scrolling through people's like, what have they been on telly, and it's like the Fourth Doctor Adventures, and I was like, this is the wrong forum for putting Big Finish, but hey, you've done it now, so at least we can kind of know that loads of people have been in Big. So there's lots of people that have done Big Finish that haven't done TV Doctor Who. But as far as I was aware, I mean, because obviously most of the characters are puppets, there's not really much room for unless there are creature performers in this who've done creature work in Doctor Who, but you wouldn't know.
No.
So I couldn't find an obvious crossover, but you think you have.
Miss Piggy, Kermit, and at least two others have performed with David Tennant in costume from the Muppets Live at the O2. And
right.
Peter Davison on the other night.
And Peter Davison, yes. Okay, I have seen a clip of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's it. That's what occurred to me when I was coming to the shed tonight. I was like, other way around. Doctor Who was in their show.
Yes. Okay.
Live on stage, so it's tangential, but it's two doctors.
Yes. That makes sense. I was then kind of going down that road of like, has the Muppets ever kind of appeared
in the background,
within the world of Doctor Who? And I was like, it's very unlikely. Obviously we've had like EastEnders. You've had.
I couldn't find, because I've got a giant book of Muppet history, and there's one double page spread of every single guest star in an episode of the Muppet Show. And I was thinking, did Tom ever do it? Because it would have been ideal time for Tom to have been the special guest.
Yes.
And it was like, that would have been so good.
But he didn't.
But I couldn't see anything.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'm sure it would have come up in the research. Especially when I was trying to find, was Barry Letts a Fraggle Rock producer? I'm sure that level of research would have come up. I genuinely expect a text message, not a text message, a tweet or something, or an email from a Radio Free Scorer to go, well, actually, I think you'll find. But my knowledge is nowhere near as up to everyone else's standards.
Yeah. Well, if it was a Hooverville interview, if it's long enough ago, there may be record of, because earlier Hoovervilles were filmed and released on DVD, so there might actually be
but to be
evidence
fair,
out there.
I think I honestly just dreamt it.
You think you dreamt it?
I think I dreamt it. The memory cheated in the most extreme way possible. Right, so
Cool.
Anyway, I think we just need to tell everyone Merry Christmas, really.
Well, yeah, we do. Well, I reiterate, as you said at the beginning, that our Breakfast Club episode, our next regular episode, will be out first Monday of the new year. We haven't recorded that yet.
Nope.
We're planning to record that in the next few weeks between recording this and Christmas, which is when you're listening to this. The DVD that you sent me has arrived, so I'm ready to watch it. So we will be in your ears again very soon, sooner than you might. We'll be in your ears when you expected us to be in your ears. This is the unexpected one, and I'm just rambling. So I will wish you a very, very Merry Christmas. I hope you are having a good day with your family, or a good festive period. If you have saved this for after Christmas Day, there's no reason you should actually listen to us when it goes out.
Don't listen to this on Christmas Day. It's a bit late now. You've probably listened to it all the way through.
Well, if you're hearing Michael telling you not to listen to it now, it is a bit late.
Merry Festivus, yes.
Merry. And a Happy New Year and all that jazz. And I'm going to stop waffling and hand you over to Michael.
Okay. Well, in that case, be seeing you.